Hi, I am going to call this Jeff's Journey, with Jack sometimes in the background. Basically, I've been feeling a little bit better recently, and I've been told to write a book about 5,729 times about different adventures that I've had. I haven't gotten around to writing a book, especially over the last year, where I have not really been mentally up to writing a book. It's kind of been pointless. So I don't know if I'm ever going to get to that, if I'm going to get to that, when I'm going to get to that. And instead, I thought it would be cool to have some sort of record of something interesting. So I thought I might record a video every now and then. I have no idea how often I'm going to do this, but I'm thinking maybe like a couple of times a week, just kind of the stuff that happens to be on my mind. It's totally off the cuff. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about in particular, and there is no theme other than the fact that it's my life, so, that's the theme, I guess. But I just got back from a recent chiropractic appointment, very recently, like an hour ago, with a woman that manipulates the bones that make up your head, which influences the way the cerebral spinal fluid flows in your head. And that may be a major part of my issue is that the bone, the odontoid, is pressing into my brainstem or too close to my brainstem, blocking that cerebral spinal fluid flow, and that's causing pressure on different points in the brain, which causes all sorts of trouble. So we're going to see if maybe she can move the bones around a little bit and get a little change or a little difference. Nevertheless, 2 weeks ago, me and Michael Rixke, my friend and my other chiropractor, we were checking out some different x-ray stuff, and we think we might have found something that's working. I'm obviously, for people that have interacted with me, a little more energetic and a little more cognitively efficient than I've been over the last longer than a year, probably 14, 15 months. So seems to be helping. And all it really is keeping C1 and C2, the top two vertebrae, which are really messed up on me, right? They're long ways apart, closer together, essentially. So probably like 50 times a day I do this. I try to like stick them closer together, literally. And then I like lean up against the wall, lean my head back against the wall, and press them closer together that way. So that seems to be helping. And I'm probably 2 weeks into really focusing on that. And I see results. So I've even started working out a little bit. Let's see. There's my weights, right? Some little weights. And I've never stopped walking basically every day. But my walk's been getting shorter and shorter over this last year every day, which is the exact opposite of what you want when you're doing any sort of physical training or any training at all, right? It's like reverse progress, regression. So I haven't seen any improvements in that, but hopefully I'll start walking further as well. And my sleeping seems to be going better. So health-wise, I think I'm on to some really good stuff, which is kind of first real health stuff I've been on to that I think might really work decently well for a longer period of time. I had a different adjustment that I was doing in the past that seemed to, in a very short period of time, help relieve a lot of the symptoms, a lot of the pain, because it was kind of hacking the human nervous system right in the spinal cord. But I think just because of the way my bones are set up very specifically, it was causing chronically like more issues over a long period of time. So I needed it more and more often. It's just weird because of the way my bones are structured. So hopefully, I cross your fingers. Hopefully we're on to some good stuff. I know some people have noticed that, right, I put a post up about my life expectancy being 7 to 17 years. I think that's legitimate, like statistically as a class, but class probability does not apply to a single case, such as I'm a single case. But most likely, I think that's decent to have as an expectation, like 7 to 17 years, which, as long as I can function at a high level, is not actually a bad thing, I think, in any way. It's just like you just have to live twice as fast. It's kind of like a deadline, and everyone knows you get a lot more done when you have a deadline, when you set a deadline. So thinking that I might just live 7 to 17 years, even though it seems short, it's like a decent deadline. So I think I might just get more done, right? Like live twice as fast because you have half the time type of thing. So it might end up being a positive thing. I kind of think it might be. We'll see. It's kind of hard to tell. I am still doing the teaching in the morning to Chinese students for a company called A Top Class. They're basically a Chinese startup, completely distributed tech company, which is cool. Well, mostly cool. We share information through like spreadsheets and forms and Dropbox, which is awesome. So I like sit in the same exact spot. Like right here is where I teach students in the morning, which is cool. I teach kids from 4 to like 14 I have right now, all the way from learning ABCs and abacada, effaga, all the phonics stuff, to advanced epistemology. One student, we're reading Animal Farm, talking about politics and economics and different systems and taxation and force and all of that works and how it all goes. So that is extremely interesting in itself. My video froze. I have no idea if the volume or the video recording actually froze. It's moving again. All right. So obviously, hopefully, at some point in the future, I'll get a better system. But for now, it's working pretty good. But anyways, the teaching thing in the morning is pretty fulfilling when you're like seeing a lot of progress, which I seem to keep about 12 students. 12 students, I don't know why, but that just seems to be the number of students I keep. I could keep more, but I don't. My turnover rate and my acquisition rate for students seems to keep it basically just at 12. So I applied to another teaching site, Cambly, which has a completely different idea, like a different setup, and you get paid by the minute that you teach, and you can just make yourself like available, and then students can like check in. I haven't taught on there yet. I just got approved for them. I just made the application a couple of days ago. So that'll be interesting, but I will definitely check that out. That was actually word of mouth. Gave me that website from my Muskegon Toastmasters meeting. Jason, one of the members there, brought a guest named Leah. She teaches on there and got a recommendation for working online teaching English by word of mouth in Muskegon. Like, what are the odds? So that's interesting. And since I've been feeling better, I'm up to more stuff. Before my production level and just my energetic level have been going down. And I'm obviously like I'm out of shape, and I look in better shape now than I did just a couple of weeks ago because I've been able to do a little more stuff. It seems to be increasing. So I've been applying to places, and what I really want to set up is I want to go digital nomad still. I've wanted to go digital nomad basically since I left 42. I just work on a computer from anywhere in the world that I can get an internet connection, which the teaching thing, and now both my teaching things, are going to help with that. And I have some legitimacy there because I have my certificate that I did from Arizona State University. So the teaching thing might work out good. But I've never learned a second language, and really, ideally, you would know the language the other person knows, whether it's Spanish or Chinese or whatever. And I'm probably not going to. If I'm just being realistic, I'm probably not going to learn another language. One, I haven't, even though I've kind of intended to, I've wanted to, I've been interested in it, I never have. And two, if I have 17 years left to live, right, that helps you start planning stuff, actually. So it's kind of one of the reasons that it could be a benefit. If I have 17 years left to live, then I kind of want to stick with English. Like, there's a lot of English speakers in the world. There's a lot of people that speak English as a second language. And I'm not going to put the time into learning another language at this point. So I'm going to go with English, and I think that lessens my efficiency as a teacher, especially to beginner students. So we'll see how that works out in the future, right? Like, I'm not very good at predicting my own behavior or my own circumstances in the future at all. So I don't know, but that's just kind of a guess. I've been listening to the audiobook Replay by Ken Grimwood basically every day for a long time. It's the only novel I've ever reread. It is I consider it the greatest novel ever written. It keeps making me rethink my life. Like, if I had lived my life, I died, and then I got like transported back earlier in my life and started in the same spot, right? Like 2 decades ago or something. What would I do differently? How would I live my life? Like, how would I make corrections that I now know to make? And it's super interesting. But that book always keeps me thinking, which is why I listen to it almost every day, a little bit. And then Living Control Systems. Living Control Systems by William Powers, William T. Powers. Invented perceptual control theory in 1960 with 2 other people. But that's really been helping me get my mind around how humans actually work, like how psychology actually works. Studied a lot of psychology, taken psychology courses, read tons of books, and none of it's very good at explaining much, except for very limited circumstances. And even operant conditioning is a special case. Operant conditioning is a special case of perceptual control theory. So I think that's huge, because operant conditioning is like classical conditioning, which is a special case of operant conditioning, which is a special case of perceptual control theory, is kind of like Newton's physics being a special case of Einstein's physics being a special case of whatever physics we discover in the future that works better than Einstein's. So I think that's just a lot of progress in the science of psychology. It's not accepted by the psychology field, but nevertheless. Talking about applying for more jobs, I really want to get that remote job so I can set up a digital nomad thing. My finances are absolutely horrible, so I have no idea how I'm going to make that work in the future at all, because I have like 1 credit card maxed out right now, and I'm not making very much money. But now that I can think a lot more clearly, and especially as I'm getting my energy back, I don't think I'll have a problem making more money and starting to pay down that credit card. But it's maxed out at like 11 grand right now. So luckily it's the only credit card that I had. And I'd never been in debt before, but that the Africa adventure, being sick for a super long time, still being sick with a bunch of medical stuff, still have outgoing medical bills, still have medical bills I'm paying off, still accumulating new medical bills. Didn't have insurance at first. And then my weird decisions about like going to California in the middle of that, but it was like a life-changing opportunity, so you can't pass it up, and it's awesome. I still have friends from there, and it's just really cool. I think it was a good decision. So we'll see how it works out in the future to tell if it really was a good decision, but I think it was a good decision. But nevertheless, the jobs I've been applying for, a lot of them, I want to get a job in tech sales, like tech remote sales, outbound, preferably a lot of outbound. So I'm calling either warm leads the company's generated or cold calling leads, and I would really like to work with a company that does software as a service, because I want to be involved in some sort of tech startup. So if I can do that now, that'd be great. If not, I can develop the skill of selling that same type of product, and then hook up with someone that I know in the tech world that makes some sort of tech product, probably software as a service. Well, I already have the sales skills for doing that type of thing, and then maybe that'll really come together. Because I think programming is extremely interesting, but I don't think I'm going to dive into it deeply. I might learn a little bit more, especially of the front end stuff, get a little better at HTML, CSS, JavaScript on the front end, but probably not connecting it with like databases and JavaScript like Node on the back end. So I want to be involved in the sales side of the tech stuff. And I just started like 2 days ago looking into that. Well, a little bit longer than that ago. I started looking at probably a week ago. I started looking at getting gigs online, doing all sorts of stuff, but preferably in some sort of outbound sales like that. I've made exactly $4 so far off 1 gig, but it only took a couple of minutes to make 4 cold calls where no one answered, and I left a message on the 3rd one. The guy really liked it. He was apparently really afraid of making cold calls, and he gave me all 5-star reviews, so I mean, it worked out good. And time-wise, it would have worked out fine. I was, probably making like $1 a minute or something decent, but I only had 1 gig, so I paid $4 that way exactly. But nevertheless, maybe it could develop in the future, right? And then I've had some other leads, but I almost got conned out of $30 on one on freelancer.com. The other one was on Fiverr.com, right? The gig was $5. I got four because they take a $1 fee. The other one was on Freelancer, and they like worked the system really weird on the website. They almost they kind of did con $30 out of me, but then Freelancer refunded it to the account. So it's not that bad. It's decent. So I might look into Freelancer stuff more. And then I have 4 leads currently. 3 of them are software as a service. And I have 2 interviews for 2 different companies on Thursday. And it's looking like they'd both be as an independent rep. So I could actually do them both, which is awesome. And I could do it right from here at home, outbound calls on my own time, flexible. It's perfect. And then it'd be a pure commission. So it just depends on how much I sell, which is excellent. I have one other lead, and it would be warm leads instead of cold calls. So I'm kind of interested in that, and it would be per hour. It'd be $12 an hour, which is okay, not great, but I mean, okay, especially since I'm trying to get going from not much of anything right now. I get paid $12 to $14 an hour for the teaching gig that I'm doing currently. The other teaching gig I just got would be like $10 an hour, so 12 falls right in there somewhere. And then there's a $1,000 bonus for every 400 units sold. But they sell brackets specifically so it's like completely different. It's per hour, so it's not commission only, and I'm selling metal brackets, which isn't software as a service at all. Not exactly sure why I clicked on their stuff, but hey, whatever. And it makes countertops seem like they're hanging way further out than they should be. They're customizable, so I'm thinking you can sell them to contractors and it'd be interesting. The other stuff, one is a workplace thing for filling jobs. Like if someone's working at a restaurant, you have to fill in hours, people want off hours, fill shifts, change shifts, that type of stuff. It's a software like that, which the company pays for. I have to work on how much all this stuff would cost. That's what the interviews would be about from my end. But everyone can have it on their phone just as an app, so it's really easy to update everyone. That way everyone doesn't have to be calling everyone, texting everyone, trying to figure all this stuff out, writing it on papers on the wall at wherever they're working, which I've done all that stuff. It's really inefficient. So I think that's a good solution. There's probably competitors out there in that, but I know there's a ton of companies that don't use it yet, and I assume at some point in the future, basically every company will go to some type of solution like that because it just makes sense. The other one is a calendar. Specifically, it's like similar. It is designed to increase the communication between parents, students, and the school. So it would be ideal for like high school, middle school, elementary, and sporting leagues, soccer leagues, stuff like that, which is cool. I like that. Using software as a service to increase communication is just natural. I think in the future, everything will kind of be arranged like that, and it's not currently. So I think there's an opportunity there. And the third one was some sort of retention software designed to create retention of customers for auto dealerships. I'm not sure exactly how that works yet because I didn't get the company name or the website address yet. The other 2 I did, or the other 3 I did, so I got to check them out a little bit. But nevertheless, I'm sure I'll find out that and a lot more in the interview. So those are great leads. And one is rephunter.com. That's the website I've been using. It's specifically designed for hiring independent representatives from manufacturing firms. But as things have become technologically more increased over the years, they have some software companies too. So that's great. They're really, really legitimate. I like that a lot. They just set up the connections. They don't do any of the finance part of it because you arrange your own contract with the company as an independent representative. So that works pretty good. And then one of those leads, the bracket company, which looks really legitimate completely, is a freelancer. So hopefully, that goes good. I think it will in this case. And then the other one was off of Upwork.com, which I've hired out Upwork.com work as freelancers for mostly transcription of videos I've sent them, or books, physical books that did not have a an electronic version that I wanted an electronic version. I had someone transcribe that and remake the entire book. That was really cheap for what it was, and she did a good job. But I'm sure it did not pay her time. So I've never been on the gig end of Upwork, but I have hired Outwork, and they work really good. They use an escrow system. So basically, like me, if I'm hiring someone, my money gets pulled out of my account. It goes into an escrow account on Upwork. They don't call it an escrow account, but that's exactly how it works. And then they take their fee out of that. When the person completes their job, they say on the site, hey, I completed this job. And then me, as the person that did the hiring, I confirm that, yes, they completed this job. Then they get paid from the escrow account. That's a really good, secure, legitimate system. So I really like the way Upwork is set up. All right. I guess that's kind of life right now. I'm watching Walking Dead. Kristen's been trying to get me to watch Walking Dead for a number of years, and I didn't because it's a zombie thing, and most zombie shows are horrible. But Zombieland is good. And one day I just tried the first episode of Walking Dead, and it is good. I'm in like season 5 now, and Stephen King in his book really talks about being like honest and truthful about what you're writing, and that can be in any circumstance. It can be zombies, which probably won't happen. Although some sort of rabies thing that causes people to eat other people is a legitimate concern, but raising people from the dead by that extent is highly unlikely, right? So it's out there. It's science fiction. But the people, the way the people act, that's what Stephen King is talking about. He's saying the people have to act like actual people. You have to show actual human nature. And I think Walking Dead actually does a really good job of portraying people as how people act. And they portray a lot of different people, so you can see a lot of different perspectives, a lot of the different ways different people react in extreme circumstances. And there's some spots where it's like, yeah, people probably wouldn't do that. Usually, I think in the show, those are when the people are so nice. I don't know if people are consistently quite that nice in extreme circumstances. But nevertheless, I think to a large extent, it's pretty good on portraying human nature as it is. So I've really been enjoying the show. Yeah, I guess that's it. Soon, I need to start studying for philosophy more, because soon in May, right, it's March 7th now, but in May I have my philosophy exam from the University of London, which will actually take place at Michigan State University, and they send my essay off, which is my first exam through that, and it'll really determine if I like it, if I'm good at it, if I'm going to continue forward with it. We'll see if I can continue the finances forward with it. This first course only costs $700, so no big deal, but that's a quarter time. And if I went 3/4 time next year, that'd be $2,000. Then the year after that would be another $2,000 for full time. Then I'd be done. That's a whole bachelor's degree. So it's extremely cheap to do the international program from the University of London, especially for philosophy. It's cheaper, and it's structured really weird, because philosophy is all about reading and writing. So you just read all year. That's what they expect you to do. Read all year on all the stuff you're supposed to be reading on, which I read a lot, but I have to specifically focus on the stuff they want. I've done part of it. I have a specific book. There's a stack of books I keep next to me. But one of them is this philosophy book from the University of London called Reading Philosophy. It's just a really simple overall intro. And it's the only book the University of London provides for their philosophy degree program for this very first class. And I'm taking that first class alone just to kind of test it out. But I really have to dive into that more for that exam in May. And the exam is your whole grade, which is a very unique program. They sit you down, they give you like 9 questions. You have to select one of them, and then you write a 2-hour essay. You get 2 hours to write an essay. It's you, this question, and blank paper and a pen. And a professor at Michigan State will just watch me to make sure I'm not like cheating or anything. And then he takes the papers and he mails them, priority mail, which is kind of weird with email and everything. Now, nevertheless, they mail them back to the University of London. A professor there grades you, and that's your whole grade for the year. So the passing rate is not huge for the philosophy program through this international program. But it's an awesome program. it's cool. It's kind of cool. They've been running this program since the 1800s, which is awesome, which is why they still mail, because they haven't caught up with the times. People that were imprisoned by the Germans in World War II, American prisoners of war, took courses through the University of London and earned degrees while they were in prisoner of war camps, which is weird. Their passing rate was like less than 1% or something ridiculously low, but nevertheless, someone did it, which is just impressive. It's very cool. So I'm looking forward to that. See how it is. I've been working on my writing skills. I'm going to try to work on my writing skills more. I want to be able to put philosophical concepts into stories to make them cool and easy to understand and easier to take in, comprehend, engage with, remember. I'm almost to my Advanced Communicator Gold certification in Toastmasters. I have just a few more speeches to go. And then I have my mentee that I have to coach through 2 more speeches, which he's doing really good, so it won't be a problem. And hopefully he'll get there in a couple of weeks. I have my first step in competing in a speaking tournament again, which has been a long time. It's been like a couple of years since I've been in a speaking tournament, so I'm looking forward to that. The club and the area contest are going to be the same contest. At least that's what I'm hearing. So if you win, it's like you win 2 contests in one. So that would be cool. I mean, if the other guys win, I know them all, so that would be cool too. But I would obviously like to win. I do not know what I'm going to speak about yet. So I have to make that up. I have to get on that. And then some people might not know, or I might want to know in the future. I might be the only person watching this ever. I don't know. So if I want to know in the future, I became a precinct delegate for the Republican Party for Dalton Township, state of Michigan, and went to the state convention. That was, I don't know, like a month ago or something. That was extremely interesting. I met one guy that really understood economics who was from Albania, grew up in a communist country, so he said he understood the importance of understanding economics. He even knew who Eugene von Böhm-Bawerk was, and he's the first person I've ever accidentally met that knew who Böhm-Bawerk was, which was really cool. Very important person in economics, especially Austrian school economics. So it's interesting, and I might get involved in politics more. We will see. I've always had an issue with that because I've been a bit of an idealist, as everyone that's probably ever met me has known before this point, but probably not so much in the future. I realized fairly recently that idealism has a very close definition to psychotic break. Right? Psychotic break is how when you don't see reality as reality is. Idealism is where you want or desire or prefer something or are trying to achieve something that is highly unrealistic. That's the definition of idealism. So psychotic break and idealism are very similar. And I don't want to have a psychotic break. I try to do away with all of my magical thinking, which humans naturally do magical thinking stuff, but idealism is one of those. And I've just recently realized that idealism is a lot of the magical thinking that I've been holding on to, even though I've pushed away and been able to basically eliminate from my thinking a lot of the other magical thinking. So that was a huge revelation. And luckily, over these last couple of weeks, as I've been able to think better, I've been able to put these connections together better, pretty well. So I'm going to keep working on that. It's important to realize, though, that the same thing that allows humans to do magical thinking, that's all wrong, is the same thing that makes humans able to invent a computer and a camera and write books and conceive of awesome concepts and make arts and all this different stuff that makes humans awesome. So even though magical thinking can be very bad, the process that allows us to do magical thinking allows us to do awesome stuff too. So I prefer it, right? It's like, it's worth it. But in my life, I'm trying to do away with that magical thinking, and idealism is one of those things that has to go. Animals either effectively adapt to their environment or they die in the extreme cases, right? In the middle, you like ineffectively adapt to your environment enough to survive. But I don't want to be that animal. So so I have to adapt to my environment a lot more. And one of those things, it has to do with eliminating idealistic thinking, psychotic breaks, magical thinking. Those are all very similar, and we have to, or I have to, do away with them as much as I can. So I think that's all for today. That's quite a bit. We're at 30 minutes right now. So that was everything that was on my mind. I'm guessing in the future it'll probably be less because I won't have as much to spill out at one time. But nevertheless, and maybe at some point we can get Evie over here, right? Kristen's baby, and we'll get her. We'll get her in the video. We'll get some video of her when she's young, even though Kristen takes tons of videos and pictures and everything. Probably hear Jack in the background. So that would be cool. Got to see her today. She's super exciting, right? Like watching a kid grow and start to experience stuff. Her eyes can like focus, and it looks like she's recognizing stuff now, and she wants to move more. Super exciting. Just watching that development happen. So very cool. Very cool. If I'm talking to anybody else, I will see you next time. If I'm talking to myself, I hope I see this like way far in the future and then look back at it and be like, oh, that was crazy. I have a journal entry that a girlfriend made when I did a road trip of the United States, and I just recently found her journal, and it was crazy looking back at just the few entries she made, and I made like a little couple of things in there too. And it's super interesting to look back at that stuff and remember it, especially since I've had memory issues with all of my brain stuff, my neck stuff. It's super interesting to look back on that and just see what your perspective like was then, or what your perspective was like then, what you were expecting for your future. Super interesting. So I think this will be a cool, interesting, good way to keep track of how I develop, how things go. It'll be interesting for me to look back on if I really have memory issues soon, or even in the far future. If I have a fairly short life, this will be interesting. If I have a long life, this would be interesting. And statistically, if I have a short life and memory issues in the near future, this will be a very valuable resource, or it could be a valuable resource. So very cool. I'm glad I decided to get this project underway today.